All right, how you guys doing? We are hopping into, if I can pull it up, the review of First Peter chapter 3. This will be part 3 to First Things First. We'd love to make sure that you like the video, hit a little exit full screen, scroll just a little bit, like the video, full screen it. You feel me? So where we left off in our last video, we just talked about adorning of the women and not letting it be outward. But, I would say the same can go for men and women. There's a whole bunch of men that will also take pride in their appearance in different ways. And I don't want to say that it's just pride, but it's also vanity. Could be because of greed. It could be a whole lot of things, right? And then obviously it stems into other sins, possibly like sexual immorality, being a bad steward with what God has given you, and other things like that. But we see that obviously he's going to talk more towards the women about it. So it's more of an issue for women, and I would say still is, from back then to now. But there's also men that can be given to it. But of that, then we go to verse 4. Let it be hidden, let it be the hidden man of the heart. So this adorning that either men or women are going to do, let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and a quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great pride, a great price. Sorry. So right, God has purchased us with a price. That makes a person valuable. That's what makes a person worth something. And I don't want to say worth something like you're not worth something beforehand, right? But you could adorn yourself on a whole bunch of things. Or you can adorn yourself with fear of God, right? Meek and a quiet spirit for the women. And that's what marks value, right? Proverbs says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Not he who finds a girl who then becomes a wife, but he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Right, and to start that off, obviously what makes her valuable, that meek and that quiet spirit. We're told in Ephesians, right, let the wives respect their husbands, the husbands love their wives. It's, to respect somebody, you don't have to be meek and quiet, right? But that comes along with letting a leader lead, right? Being a good follower, quote unquote, is meek and quietness. And it doesn't mean you're always quiet or you're always meek, but you're exemplified by those things as saying, I trust you, I offer some input when it's needed, but overall you get trusted, you know? And so verse 5, no, actually, real quick, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but Pastor Paul said men are very visual creatures. But it's easy for a man, once he hears a woman speak, to tell whether that beauty is just skin deep or not, right? People will usually let you know their intentions. You can figure that out pretty easy. Like, discerning of the spirit makes it easier. But overall, you should be able to tell what a person's about by the way they talk and what they say. Verse 5. After this manner, the old time holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands. Right, so he says, just like the old women did, right? The old holy women, they trusted in God. They adorned themselves in their trust in God, and were in subjection to their old husbands. And then he goes and gives an example of Sarah. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement. And Pastor Paul made a joke about, he's like, my wife never did call me Lord. That's not something we worked up to. But it's there. Not saying you have to. Same way it's not saying you don't have to adorn yourself in whatever, or can't adorn yourself in whatever and braid your hair or whatever. But it's just saying that's something that they did. Right? So it says, whose daughters the women are, the modern women are, as long as they do well, right? Do well to keep their respect to their husband in the fear of God, and the respect to their husband for their fear of God, and are not afraid with any amazement. And he brought it back. He said, this is what brings up that manner of fear, right? They bring back up that fear because it's a very fearful position you put yourself in when a leader's not leading well. It calls you to say, does this person really know what they're talking about? Should I really stay here? Do I really want to be with this and trust that it's going to be okay? Right. Perfect love casts out fear. Right. Perfect love casts out doubt. Fear is doubt, in other words. Right. But perfect love casts out fear. We don't fear for anything in our human sense, and we don't fear for anything in our spiritual sense, knowing that we rested on Jesus Christ in the sacrifice. So we do well when we're not afraid with any amazement, but specifically the women. And obviously it's talking about, if your husband's not doing what he's supposed to do. But even still, even if he is, Pastor Paul said, husbands sometimes just drop the ball, right? They trip. Nobody's perfect. Husband's not going to be a perfect leader all the time. A wife's not going to be a good leader all the time. But what matters is you don't lose that. You don't lose that faith, right? You don't have that fear. You do well to remember to keep God first and your husband with that. And then he gets on to talking about the husbands, and he gives us 4 charges. Or right, he gives them 4 charges. Likewise, ye husbands, deal well with them, or deal with them according to knowledge. Right? So the first thing, that's another way of saying be understanding. Right? And Pastor Paul said women and men were made very different. The Bible talks about there's no male or female, Jew nor Greek, Jew or Gentile in this in Christ. And it's like, yes, but those things still exist down here for the sake of order. Right? So obviously somebody's got to be a slave, somebody's got to be free. But all are free in Jesus. Somebody's got to be a man, somebody's got to be a woman, but they're one in Jesus. Right? So with that being the case, yes, men and women are different, and husbands are called to be as understanding as possible to that difference, right? Because they're called to love their wives. If you're gonna love somebody, it's kind of hard to love somebody if you don't really understand them or ever where they're coming from or something along those lines, right? So the more you try to understand, and Pastor Paul made a joke, he's like, I still don't understand her, you know. Every time, sometimes I think I understand her, but it's really just out of muscle memory. I understand her actions and what they call for, or not the actions, but like I understand the right response. Do I understand why it's the right response? Not all the time, right? Because this is a continuous battle, right? The job's never done. The race is never finished until it's finished. But until you're dead on this earth, you are still running that race. Sorry if something weird just happened. My camera just switched monitors, but it's back. All right, so he says, dwell with them according to their knowledge, right? So try to understand them. Give honor to the wife as unto the weaker vessel. And he says, don't let your size dominate your, like, don't bully your wife physically just because you can't, right? Being a good leader is understanding the position of power you're in and treating it accordingly with the respect it so deserves, right? You're placed in a position of power as a leader to be a good leader. You shan't abuse that power. That's not right. The more you abuse that power, the more you're taking it for granted, right? And you're not being a good steward with the power that God has given you. And I'm going to pull up the list because he mentioned other things. So there was also honor your wife, right? So recognize her as a weaker vessel was part of it, but also just honoring her in general. And he says, that's another word to say, was it? Wait. Yes. Is another way basically to say value your wife, right? And what that means to value your wife, he said, it's very easy to feel like, well, to put something above her, right? And for wives, put something above your husband. Obviously, you don't want to put that gold or that braided hair above your husband, but like it's very easy to put things above other things, and it's very easy to tell where your priorities lie, right? It's all a matter of values. It's like humans are just good at seeing where other humans value other things, you know? And he said wives are very good to feel like they're not being valued. That's why husbands are called to love your wife, value her, make her see that she's valued by the love you give, right? So honor your wife, value your wife, and keep that value constant. She's coming first. You're called to possibly die for her, which means that value has to be very, very immense for you to risk losing your earthly life over, you know, which isn't crazy to us because, you know, we got salvation coming. But at the same time, right, that's a huge thing. That's all you have down here is your life, right? That's all you truly have down here. So being willing to put that on the line is a lot, you know. And he said, the last one, being heirs together in the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So he says, remember that she's also an heir to the throne with you, right? You're both going the same place. You're both getting the same salvation. Yeah, you're different, but at the same time, you're still one. You should be of one mind. You should be together, physically, mentally, spiritually, right? Recognize that, right? Don't bully her just because you're different. Don't not try to understand her because she's a little different, but keep that mindset, right? Try to understand her when you can. Love her whenever you can. Value her and all that. And then it says, because if you don't do these things, your prayers will be hindered. And being hindered, you know, that's up for interpretation here. But Pastor Paul said, a great English theologian, said something along the lines of, the groans of an injured wife can drown out the prayers of a husband. The groans of an injured wife can drown out the prayers of a husband. Right? So make sure you're valuing her, you're loving her. or else your prayers could be hindered. Yeah, serious. Prayer is our strongest weapon, and as such, we have to treat it with also the respect it so deserves, right? And with that, it's up to you. It's up to you. Value your wife so your prayers be not hindered. And when you're praying for her, you're praying for you, you're praying for your family. It's all in your best interest. So we have to do these things. Anyway, that's all. Alright, it's gonna be the end of the video. Hope you guys have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.